We're live. Hi, and welcome to Gay Out the City. I'm your host, Prince Electro Diamond, and today I'm here with star of For the Love of Dills Season 2, Kane. How you doing today, sexy?
I'm very good. And how you doing?
I am good.
That's good. You look good.
Word. Thank you. Word. So, what was it like for you
Mhm.
growing up as a kid in Australia?
For me, I lived all around Australia. I was born like up in the north, which is like a very farming place of Australia. Then we moved, my dad was a miner, so we moved out to the middle of Australia where I started doing like dance and gymnastics. So that was really tough, but I loved it. I had a great time. And that's what got me started into my career. And then from there, we moved to Brisbane, which is a bigger city. And then I left home quite young at 16 and went down to Sydney. And that's when I started my performing arts career. And then lived in Melbourne, Perth. So growing up was very eclectic for me. I lived in many places, but that one integral part where I grew up in the middle of Australia, that was interesting. I don't know if you've ever heard of a movie called Billy Elliot. I was kind of like the real life Billy Elliot, the
Yes.
boy that danced. Yeah, the boy that danced in like a small mining town. So it was quite interesting, but I survived. So I'm happy I survived, and happy I got out as well.
Well, definitely. As I was telling you before, I grew up in South Florida, so like
Mm,
I lived here almost all my life, except for 4 years. I moved to Orlando, which
mm.
was nice because what was it? I remember my aunt telling me at one point, she's like, "I thought you would never get out of here." I'm like, "But I had to. I had to go like find myself. I wasn't gonna do
Yeah,
it here because it's like,
for sure.
especially there's like stuff around here. There's like drag queens around here. They
Right.
don't see me. They don't let me perform because my thing is like they're all lip sync artists and like I sing live every time I perform, and it's like
Oh wow.
in the way that like they can do like 10, 15 minutes, I can do 45 minutes to an hour. And like,
Oh,
just
you're like
because,
putting on the whole show. You're the whole
yeah,
show. Pop
I mean,
concert.
that's why when I was telling you, and like in the way of like when I was telling you about Detroit and my plan to move
Mm.
to Detroit, it's like Detroit's very accepting of outsiders in the way that Florida is very cliquey. Meaning,
Ah,
like, if you
okay.
don't know this person and you're not friends with that one and you don't do things the way that this one wants, then you're not a
It's hard.
performer. That's why I created this. Because I'm like,
Yeah.
well, let me do something that y'all can't do or don't have the balls to do.
Yeah. You have to create your own lane, right? You have to, make things
Yeah.
happen for yourself. Step outside the box. You don't want to be inside the box all the time.
No, I've never wanted to do that. That's why like when I think about even creating music, when this is the one thing, and I see so many people have to be asked this, so many musicians ask this in interviews. It's
Mm.
like describe your music. It's like,
Right.
why do I have to describe it? Why can't you just listen to it? Like,
Go ahead. Why can't you stream it?
yeah, because it's like if I say like technically I make like electronic music, but like in that there's so many different like subgenres of electronic music that like
100.
I do a little bit of that one, a little bit of this one, a little bit of that one. It's just like it all depends on how I was feeling when I made a beat and like
Right.
what I was able to sing in the song. It's like
Yeah.
it's
You're a fusion.
no, absolutely. So I mean, I remember having this conversation with I did an interview with a musician a few days ago, and it was like
Mm.
he was telling me that thing. It was like he was from Colombia, and it was like he was saying how they want you to do just this one thing. And to me, it's like, and you probably know this as a dancer.
Hmm.
If every like performer did one kind of style, there would
Yeah.
theoretically only be one kind of dance.
Yeah, right. Yeah. True. Very true. I mean, I think dance a bit different, like, because you do have your ballet dancers that just do ballet companies, right? But I was more like
Right.
a freelancer, so I had to be able to do quite a lot of things because you wanted to get every job that was possible, right? So I had to do theater, I had to be able to dance with a pop artist, I had to be able to dance behind a drag queen. So,
Yeah.
being for me, I had to kind of do all different things, but we're definitely in dance world. There are contemporary dancers, ballet dancers, and then what we call a commercial dancer, which is somebody that kind of has to be able to fake it till you make it and do everything so you can pay your rent.
That's the thing. It's like I tell people those very few entertainers that like make it to the top and like are like corporate artists, like I look at them and I'm like, in some ways I love the fact that I'm independent because it's like I have a mouth. Like I know this about myself where it's like
Right.
I'm the person who like if there was like when I hear people like controlled by managers and they're like, "Oh, I have to ask my manager to like I've even had people when I've approached them to come on here, they're like, "I have to ask my manager to do an interview." I'm sorry, what?
Right.
You have
Yeah,
to ask
right.
your manager. Like I understand you need to check with your manager to like see if you have time or like what your schedule is like, but to ask them if you can
But whereas you can just make your own choice, right? You can just be here if you want to.
no. And when I see people like that, I don't know. I guess I'm not afraid of pissing people off, and I guess it's
Right. You can say it through your music too, without anyone
yeah,
telling you what to write as well, right?
yeah, because there's nobody like in terms of when I get into the studio, it's like I'm basically gonna be handing a producer a beat, and I'm gonna be like, just work with me on my vocals. I know what I want. You can kind of just like help me better fix my vision.
Right.
But it's like
Guide me.
I'm already done. That's why I hear some people taking like say like, "Oh, it's gonna take me 6 months to finish my album." I'm like, "You're paying for studio time, and it's gonna take you 6 months to finish an album." I'm like, as long as I have the money, I'm theoretically thinking I can get that shit done in like 2-3 months. Like,
Yeah, right, right. That's good. In
yeah,
Detroit, you got to make it happen.
yeah. I mean, because it's like I describe this album as like my passion project because it's like
Mm.
in some ways, and I know this is kind of dark to think about this. This
Mm.
actually comes in them. Actually, you know what? Let's not go there yet. I'll explain
Oh,
this in a
wow.
minute. So no. This kind of
Now you're
no. It fits
scaring
in with
me.
no. It fits in with my next question. That's why I'm gonna say this.
Ah, okay, cool.
So
All right.
what was it like for you coming out?
Coming out for me, I suppose wasn't too difficult. I think it did happen on a Christmas day, which wasn't so nice. um, that's when everyone kind of found out. But before that, I kind of
Yeah,
just had a friend that ended up when people just realized the friend was probably more than just a friend. So, I mean, I was always very supported. I think my family were very supportive. It wasn't like a very bad coming out story where anybody was like, get out, like I think people didn't know how to do it. They were back in the 90s as well. So it was a long time ago when, I think nowadays it's so much easier for people. Well, not much easier for people, but like there's just so much more representation of us anywhere and everywhere, right? And back then was that, it wasn't cool to be gay, and like HIV and AIDS was like a
right.
gay disease, and so there was all that fear of people that didn't really understand what it really meant, you know what I mean? And when I say I grew up in a small country town. I was from the north of Australia, so once again that's even tightens the minds of people and the exposure to what a gay person is, I suppose. So I think back then being gay was maybe quite a scary thing for family members to think, oh my God, you're going to have a sad life, you're going to die, like all those fears that I think a lot of uneducated people think about gay people. So if I was to look back in time, I think my family supported me very, very well. Yeah.
See,
It was
I
no
would
dark
say
mystery.
I had I had both. I had a good coming
Mm,
out and a bad part of my coming out. So like
mm,
family family for me was easy. I always say I have it easier than some people because I only had to come
mm.
out to one parent because I
Right.
came out 4 months after my mom died. So it was
Oh, I'm so
only
sorry. Yeah.
thank you. So it was only having to come out to my dad and then for immediate family, it's like my dad, and then I have an older sister who was super accepting. And then we fast forward to November and she came out herself.
Oh, wow. Double
So,
banger.
so I'm thinking in some ways I told her, I'm like, I was like the supportive brother, like, welcome to the family. But in some ways, I also felt like, you're welcome, bitch. Like, I
To my sunshine.
laid the groundwork for you.
Yeah.
So,
You softer landing.
yes, that was the good part. So
Mm.
the bad part was I also had a religious upbringing. So I came out
Oh.
to a youth minister at the church, and I told him about this performance idea I had with a knife
Mm.
and how I'd practice stabbing myself because I'm dramatic, obviously. And he left the room. He came back in about 10 minutes later and he said, okay, you have one of two options. Either you're
Oh,
coming with
shit.
me or I'm calling the cops.
Oh. Where was he going to take you? Did he give you that option where he was going to take you?
No, he did not tell me. Had I
Oh,
known where he was going to take me, I would have let him call the cops. The cops wouldn't have done a fucking thing.
was he going to take you to like some conversion therapy or something?
That came later.
Oh.
So it's like,
Oh.
so it's like he took me to get a psych eval
Oh my
at a
God, I'm so
hospital.
sorry. Oh,
Thank you.
shit.
They had told me I had passed it. So like there was something, I was on the phone with my dad at this hospital. I'm like, yeah, just come back here and get me. Like, I'm all good. And then I had a cop yell at me. He's like, get off the phone. I'm like,
Whoa.
I'm thinking, what the hell? Like, I'm just over here, like, minding my own business. And then they left me
Wow.
in a hospital room. And
How
for
old were you?
I was 18. I was 18, but I
Oh
was
my
naive.
God.
Yeah.
Can't you, isn't 18, you can just like make your own decision, no?
See, I stupidly signed my rights away.
Oh. Oh. I
I didn't
see.
realize what I was signing.
Right.
I didn't know, like, granted, when people say, like, oh, artists, we all think we're insane. Like, all artists have some sort of, like, especially I would say musicians, if you're not, like, if you have everything going on right up here,
There's no
you wouldn't
creativity.
be you wouldn't be an artist. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, so then what was it? Then
You were at the
uh
hospital and you
yeah,
rang
I
your
was at the
dad, and then the
hospital.
police shouted you off the phone.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you. So like then they just left me in there and then they told me they had done, well, essentially I'll just explain what it was. They put me on a 72-hour suicide hold.
Oh, goodness. Did you not
And then they
explain it was performance art? It was
I
not real life.
explained all of this. I explained all of this to them. Like they asked me the questions like, were you in drama? I answered yes, because I was. Like, I don't know. I was brought in on a weekend, so I ended up having to serve almost the whole time. If I was brought in during the week, I probably would have been in and out in a day. Like,
Right. Yeah. I
because
see.
the weekday psychiatrist literally said to my dad, he's like, I don't know why somebody brought him here. Like,
Right. Oh, that's super
and then
sad.
yeah, and then well, I didn't go to to the conversion therapy. So like after I got out,
Mm.
the youth minister and a priest got together with me in a room, and they set me
Mm.
up with a therapist
Mm.
who tried
Oh.
to pray the gay away. Yes.
It's a real thing. I just can't even believe
Yeah.
that is a thing. I'm sorry that you went through that.
Thank you. Thank you. Mine's not as bad as some people's. Like, they didn't
Yeah, some people
electroshock
have
me or
hell
anything like that.
stories. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. And then, yeah. No, so for me, I mean, yeah, of course it wasn't like all rainbows and, people struggled with it. But
Yeah.
if I think about it with like what some people went through, especially like conversion therapy or being sent away to
Yeah.
a gay camp, like, no, definitely not.
Yeah.
I'm super lucky. Yeah.
As I will say, like, some people think like coming out and like being gay and like experiencing life was some of the
Mm,
greatest times in their life. I
mm,
consider 18 to like 25
mm.
some of the worst times of my life. Like, in
Oh,
that
no.
time, locked up again, this is why I'm a musician, locked up in a behavioral clinic,
Oh, God.
suicidal, yeah, suicidal twice. I
Oh,
was I was raped and I was sexually assaulted. So like
oh my
all of that within
God.
the span of like, yeah.
Jesus, I hope you went into some therapy or still
I
in
wrote
therapy. Oh, your music is your therapy.
I wrote an album. That's exactly what I did. I wrote an album. Like,
Oh, shit. That's sad. Wow. God.
but
No, I went through hard stuff, but I think
yeah,
that time of my life, I was living in Sydney, and in that period of my time, like late teens to early 20s, and Sydney back then was, I think, one of the best cities to be gay
yeah,
in, because it was so accepting back then, and you had, well, it's accepting now, but you had the Mardi Gras that used to be massive, it still is massive, but growing up gay there was like, I think, a bit of a blessing. I mean, it was the perfect place to be for a young gay man in Australia. You felt
I
safe,
mean,
safer.
yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I had good times in that, but there was like
Of course.
a lot of bad times that like, but it's also again, it's like when you fall. I always say this, like when people talk about like doctors, lawyers, all of this,
Mm-hmm.
you go to college, you're given a roadmap. When you're an artist, you're like
Mm-hmm.
you find out all of this stuff and you're just like thrown into life. It's like because what
Mm.
was it? I was explaining to somebody. I'm like, I've been writing songs since I was 14 years old. So it's like I have never had to like deal with things. It's like when I get angry, I put the anger in the song. When I'm sad, I put the sadness in the
Right.
song. When it's
But at
like
least
when
you're not
somebody
taking it out on
piss
anybody else.
no.
At least
And
you're
that's
not taking your
why
anger out on somebody else. You're channeling it.
no. Yeah. See, I always feel like that's healthy. And like I actually like
Yeah.
speaking to therapy. I actually had a therapist on here and he said like that's a healthy way of getting it out. I'm like, well, that's a good thing.
Mm.
I thought therapist was gonna tell me he's like, no, you need to be in therapy, bitch. Like,
Well,
which
therapy is talking, right? What you're doing is just talking
yeah,
through song. Therapy is about
yeah.
talking it out, getting it out, right? So you saved yourself some money and probably made a little bit in the same time. Double
That's
whammy.
my thing is it's like for people who need it, it's like need it, but it's like let everything out and like the hardest thing for me to admit was like finally like confronting the rape as rape was probably the hardest thing
Mm.
for me because I kind of like just took it as like a oh, this person took advantage of me, I was sexually assaulted twice, like all this is like no,
Mm. Mm.
you need to say this and like you need to put this in the song and like I will say it's one of my favorite. The song is called Rape that I put it into. It's one of my favorite songs on the album actually because it's like
Okay.
it's this intense EDM beat where it's like I'm just sitting in there. There's points where like my vocals are kind of like yelling, like, and I'm just
Right.
letting it all out. And it's like, to me, some people be like, that's chaotic, but it's like, I love the
Cathartic.
feeling of, I love the feeling of telling people it's gonna be nice for the world to dance to my pain, which I know is weird to like think about, but it's like
Oh,
also kind of beautiful.
that's cute. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah,
The world's gonna dance to my pain. That's cool. I like that.
yeah,
That should be a song.
and it might, because this is the craziest part. As I say, this is a typical musician for you. I haven't gotten in to the studio to record a single note. I've already started writing the next project. Like,
Right.
and it's like, I'm gonna have no money to put it out, but it's like,
It's in your mind.
you know,
This is the. It's waiting to be birthed.
no, exactly. It's like that's what all of it is. It's just like, and you probably know this, like,
Mhm.
so. Well, wait. As like a dancer, did you ever like? Were you just like somebody who like worked with people, or did you ever choreograph anything?
I choreographed a lot when I was in the
Yeah.
industry. Yeah, of course. Yeah, it was part of what you
Well,
had to do. You know.
see, like,
Yeah.
but in that, it's like what choreographing something. It's like once it all finally comes together, it's like it makes sense. But it's
Ta-da!
like, well, while you're like writing it like,
It's all pieces of a puzzle, right? And then it all,
yeah,
have to make those puzzle pieces fit, and then it comes to life. So that's what you mean by you're writing a music. It's like a big puzzle, right?
yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
It's the puzzle, and it's like once I put down the track list, and it's like it's literally as I say with this album, which I decided I'm gonna be edgy, like the edgy person I am. I decided I'm gonna call it Confessions of a Transvestite. So it's like for me, it's like it kind of the way I describe it is like the way the set or the way the like track list is, it's like chronologically through my life where it's like I start
Ah,
at
super
18
cool.
and then I ends like I think I wrote the last song in November. So like
Uh-huh.
I wrote the I wrote the first song in 2015. So it's like theoretically it took me like as some people say like 10 years to write this album, but it's just
It's a
I have the
full life
songs.
body of work.
Yeah.
That's cool. I love all your ideas. You got it all sorted
Yeah.
out.
Yes. So where am I? Well, okay. I guess I can ask you this. So
Mm.
what was it like for you moving to Shanghai?
Originally, when I first arrived, this is like the most wonderful city. Honestly, I can't explain how fun this city is to live in and how easy and safe. Um, I moved here back in 2019, and before that, I'd been living in Japan on a very, very small island. So, like it's in the Okinawa region, south of Japan, where it was like not even any cars really. Well, there was cars, but where I lived was so remote that I couldn't hear a car. I've been there for about 10 months, and then I moved from there to this crazy, massive 27 million people city where it's just insanity. It's like I was talking to a girlfriend yesterday, and I call it Disneyland for adults. Like it's just such a wonderful, diverse city, and there's so much to do. There's always something to do. And I did leave recently for a year after, like at the end of COVID. So I was here for the whole of COVID. And
Yeah.
then during lockdown, I left because I had to. And I've just recently come back again after filming the show. So yeah, I mean it's a wonderful city, and if you haven't been here, I would tell everybody visit because it's not what you think if you've never been here. So people's perceptions of what Shanghai or China is so different to you watch when you arrive. So I have a lot of people say, oh my God, how could you live there? And I'm like, you just don't understand how wonderful it is. So it's one of those things where unless you've tried it, you just never know. Right. I'd never been to Shanghai before I moved here. I'd been to Beijing a couple of times, but never to Shanghai. But they do call it the New York of Asia or whatever, and it truly is.
Yeah.
Like it is. It's that city where you feel, even at my age, I'm 45. You feel like anything is possible. Like you feel like the city is so massive. There's so much opportunity. Yeah, you really feel I don't feel old here. Let's put it that way. Like I feel old when I wake up. But I don't feel old as in Australia. Like at 45, you're kind of, I don't know, not at the end, but kind of that. I don't feel. I feel like there's limitations on what you can do, and like in Shanghai, I feel like there's so much that can be achieved, or there's so much more opportunity for me.
See, I kind of feel that like I can get that when people say like when I talk about moving to Detroit, I've never been to Detroit, but like
Yeah.
I've done enough research on it where it's like people are like it's like would it be nice to go and visit once before I move there? Yes. If it doesn't happen, am I going to be mad? No, because it's like eventually it's like yes, I'm uprooting myself and moving thousands of miles away, but it's like it's also like you have to do that where it's like
well, this is the thing too, is my motto in life is you can always go home or always go back. If you go to somewhere and it doesn't work out, then it doesn't mean that you have to stay there forever, right? You can leave again. But who knows? Like just for me, like I came to a city that I didn't know anything about and completely fell in love with it. And when I left, missed it every day. So I mean, you got to take risks in life. You got to take chances, especially as an artist. You can't just sit in one place and think things are going to happen, right? You need to travel. If you feel like your pull is in Detroit, you want to put your album out there, you feel like that's where you're going to get it going, then you go. If it doesn't work out for you, there's no reason you can't go somewhere else. That's how I live life.
See, that's such a beautiful way. And the other thing I tell people is like the other thing about Detroit is I want to travel like so much, but being in Florida, I always feel like it's so hard to travel within the United States, literally because it's like the southernmost part of the continental United States. So it's like it takes forever to get out of Florida.
Right.
That's
okay.
That's what I tell people. It's like I've driven to Georgia before, like just to get out of Florida itself, to get from Florida, like where I'm at in Florida to Atlanta, it takes 12 hours to drive.
Right.
And most of that is getting out of it takes like 6 hours to get out of Florida.
Right.
Or 7 hours. Like that's
it's long.
Why?
It's big.
No, it's big. It's big, it's long, and it's like for my thing is with all people are like Florida's awesome. I'm like, do you not understand what climate change is like? It's like Florida's gonna be underwater. Like,
well,
newsflash, like
with alligators. There's heaps of alligators there, right?
Yeah. It's just
Detroit. What was that song? Go to Detroit. Get there as fast as you can.
yeah. Yes. And
Put it out there. Say it out loud.
Yeah. And it's like I've already made like a drag contact in Detroit. So it's like I already know somebody there. So it's like it's not like going somewhere and not knowing anybody.
But I think it's so much easier to move these days too with social media. Like you can reach out to people and you can see so much more about somewhere before you go or what the scene's like through like social media, right? Like you can get in and see what it is, see people there, people are blogging, photographing everything all the time, 24/7. So I think you can get a better sense of what something is like now that we have that constant social media.
And the other point I tell people is like, if I get bored of Detroit, let's just say I get bored of Detroit, you drive 10 minutes. You drive 10 minutes from Detroit, you're in Canada.
No, right. There you go. See, like that's what I said. If you don't like it, move on. Try somewhere else.
Yeah. It's like you can go. Yeah. It's just everyone says because I'm originally from Florida. They're like, you're not gonna get used to the cold. I'm like, well, you live somewhere. My thing is, I move in June, so it's like if you move in June, theoretically by December you'll be somewhat acclimated to the weather. So it's like,
right.
If not, it's
and you can't let weather stop you from doing something. Let's be honest, because you can warm yourself up, you can cool yourself down. That's a cop out. That's people being too comfortable in their lives and not taking a risk, too scared to take a risk and find an excuse. Mm.
Believe me, some people are like, and also it's probably much like with you in Shanghai. People like to compare it to what they theoretically know what the city's like. They're like,
And look, it's fine. Some people love to. I know lots of people that have born somewhere, grow up there, never
yeah,
leave there, but that's what
yeah,
that makes them happy. That makes them secure. Whereas me,
yeah,
I just don't want to. I could never be in the one place forever. I never see that, and I want to experience other cultures. So everyone's different,
yeah.
right? We all have different lives. Whether that means someone like me who's lived in, I don't know, 5 different countries, or somebody that's lived in the
Wow.
same suburb from when they were born to, when they have children, and then they don't move on, but that's okay. Like that's that's up to some people. That's not for me, but for other people, what I do, which is just move on a whim, is like the scariest thing in the world. Whereas for me, staying in one place, it sounds like death. You know what I mean? So we're all different, right? We're all different humans. Look at us.
See, that's the thing. Like, I'm the person who's like, and I told people I would do that. I'm like, y'all watch. Like, it's like one day you're gonna see me in Florida, the next day you're just gonna see me. I'm gonna take a picture. I'm like, I'm in Detroit, motherfuckers. Like,
Yeah.
I
Keep them
live
on
here
their
now.
toes.
Yeah, because that's my thing. People who just like are constantly like, I don't know. There's something I love what I do in terms of like this and like music and stuff because it's like
Mm,
I'm a drag queen. I don't really show myself out of drag, so it's like nobody really knows my day-to-day life. And it's like
right.
I kind of like it like that.
Well,
Because
sure.
there's
You
some
have your
people who are
real life,
just
and then you have your alter ego, and your career, and your,
yeah.
your
And some people are
work.
just they're overexposed. Like
Right.
they're just showing so much. It's like you exploit yourself of all this. You exploit all this. You like say all this stuff. First of all, I look at people who exploit the relationship. I'm like, okay, that means one of two things. Either you guys are the most amazing couple in the world, or you're just
Mm.
putting this out in front of people to make them believe that everything's going okay, but secretly behind the scenes.
Well, I think it's
Because
validation, right? Some people need their relationship validated. They need to, well, you're right. They're either, you know, faking it or need the attention. People need to be validated singly and as a couple. I mean, I went on a show where we're looking for
yes,
love, and so I'm not going to judge anybody on that.
we'll see. I will say this before I get into my questions of
Mm,
the show. I feel like in some ways I didn't put this on here, at least in my view.
hmm
You were not going to be set up to win. And I say
Any
that
of us or me individually?
you in particular.
Ah, okay.
I I say that because you were matched up with the two people who before the show had the biggest careers. So people
Right.
with the biggest careers, they're not going to let win because the world already knows who they
Yeah.
are.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and in saying that, I think I did date 2 of the most pretty boys in the house. But yeah, I mean, look, I think Nick has said it himself on other podcasts. Like he was cast for the show. Like he didn't apply for the show. He was approached
Yeah.
for the show, right? So like Nick, I think took an opportunity, and I mean, I don't know how much you've been watching and how much you've seen in the media or whatever, but Nick got a lot of
No.
flack about it. But I don't think like Nick just took an opportunity. He was asked to do a show. And look, he said he didn't have a boyfriend on the outside. I'm not sure I believe that, but um, I don't hold anything against him. Like he took an opportunity, and why not? You know what I mean? Like it didn't work out for me, but I don't, like he was just doing what he was doing. And then Hazel, I'm not sure about Hazel, whether Hazel was approached or did a casting. I don't really know
Yeah.
actually. But yeah, I mean, they both have huge social media followings and huge social media careers, you know. So it was good for them to do something like that because it's going to build their brand more, and also for the show, it gets lots more viewers, right? So, yeah, maybe I didn't
Yeah.
get the best start because you know I probably couldn't date somebody that you know has to be on their phone the whole time, and that does come up in the show with Hazel.
Right.
But yeah. But yeah, keep going. Like, yeah, that's interesting that you think that that's why it didn't go well for me.
Well, I mean, well, because this is what I will say between season
Hmm.
1 and season 2. Because, like,
Mm,
I will say this: season 1 was filled a lot more with personalities, like
mm,
people who already had careers. So I feel like it was less about people trying to find love versus people
right,
trying to build their social media. Because it's like,
right, yeah,
you look at it this way, like, you had Prince Joshua Tokyo, you had who else? Mateo. Like, they all had like huge followings before they even went on the show. Like,
right, yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah. Well, I'd never actually even heard about the show, to be honest with you, until I randomly saw it one day on
yeah,
a thing, and my friends all call me daddy because I'm so much older than all of
yeah.
them, straight, gay, whatever. They just call me Daddy Kane. That was just always my name. And so I screenshot it and sent it to them and said, like, I'm gonna go on this show. I'm so desperate for love. Ha
Yeah.
ha ha. Send it to the group. And then that afternoon I actually went on a real date. And then at the end of the date, this guy was like, I'm gonna go home and watch this really tacky dating show. And I'm like, oh, what's it called? And he told me, and I'm like, wow, that's like the second time today I have heard about the show. And because I'm so into like the universe and signs and astrology and all that, I'm like, first thing I had to do, I went
Yes.
home, I Googled the show. And then there was like this worldwide casting, and my life has been quite crazy in that I'm always in these not strange situations, but strange things happen, and good in good ways and not so good ways, and I just see an opportunity and I take it. So that's how I ended up on the show. I knew nothing about it, and then people say to me, "Why did you go on the show?" And I'm like, "Well, one, why not? Two, I actually thought, like in my mind, like, oh, this could be how I find true love. Like, I honestly did think in my heart of hearts that my life has been so random and so like unique and crazy, or whatever word you want to use to describe it, that I actually did think in my heart of hearts, oh, maybe this is how I find love. So, like, for me, it was about, you know, like I literally thought, I know it's reality TV and I'm a huge reality TV
Yes.
fan, so I get it. But I still thought, there was a part of me that was like, maybe this is how it happens for me, you know? So I knew nothing of the show until that very one day. And then next minute, 5 weeks later, I'm filming it. So it was so surreal for
Yeah.
me. So, yeah. So I definitely didn't go on for a social media following. I created my account. Like, I have other social media accounts, but I created the social media account that I use for the show. You know what I mean? Because I did
Yeah.
want to keep it a little bit separate, you know. So for me, it was definitely not about a social media following, but there was a conversation in the house that doesn't make it on camera where I say to everyone sitting on the couch, I'm like, you're all fucking influencers in this house. And someone says to me, well, you're not. I'm like, yeah, I'm not actually, you know. But there was definitely um an undertone of, a lot of them have big followings and a lot of them wanting to, maybe increase that, which is once again absolutely fine, if that's what it was for. But for me, yeah, I didn't have any following before I came on the show, and still don't have much of a following now. But yeah, so yeah.
Well, I mean, let's put it this way: it ended up leading you to me, which
Yeah, yeah,
actually,
true.
I will say this. Since you already answered my question about why did you audition for the show, it's
Mm,
like,
mm, mm.
so how did you come across me? I'm just curious.
I saw Anthony's
Oh,
interview.
okay.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm. And then I just followed you, and
That's
then we
yeah.
started chatting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I will say. There's a well, first of all, to this season, I interviewed a lot of himbos, didn't have a lot of daddies on last season. There's a reason that I've only interviewed daddies this season because like the himbos I want, I can't get a hold of. And some people, I'm gonna say this is the part where I'm gonna be a little bit shady. Some people have
Mm,
let the little bit of fame
mm,
they got from the show, at
mm.
least in my view, get to
Yeah.
their head.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's a shame.
Because
Have you reached out
because
to people and they?
I'll just tell you who I did reach out to. So I did reach out to Keys, and
Mm-hmm.
Keys originally agreed to do it, and then like all of a sudden, as we were getting ready to like make plans, he's like, I hope you'll agree to my $100 interview fee. I'm like, no, I'm not interested.
Right. Yeah. Right.
I'm thinking, I'm like, because part of me wanted to be like, motherfucker, nobody knew who you were a year ago. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you're
Oh,
out in
that's a
LA.
shame.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Look, I mean, I think, you're right. Like I haven't seen, and
yeah,
sadly I couldn't make it to the finale or anything because I had to fly
yeah,
back to Australia. Scary. I haven't seen anybody. I keep in touch with a
yeah,
few of the boys. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know what they're all doing or what's going on with their 15 minutes, but
yeah,
yeah, that's sad that people can't. Why not? Like, I want to have my say as well. I want to like. There's so much that you don't get to say in the show that people
yeah,
maybe don't see about you. So for me, doing things like this, it's more about just having a bit more of a voice after the show, right? I don't need your $100 fee. Like I don't know. I'm not saying that in a bad way. I don't need the $100,
yeah,
but yeah, for me it's just like carrying on and being able to like explain maybe a little bit more of what like people was, we film for so many hours in a day, and then
yeah,
they can only show an hour and they have to create a story. And I actually think the producers, because I was literally in the house, I think how they've shot the show and what they've shown, they've really protected a lot of people. I think there was a lot of crazy stuff that went on, but I think the producers really showed good sides of most people as much as they possibly could. So for me, I think I was portrayed very well, but I also think I was like, there's still so much more that I could have been shown. And for me, things like this are more about me being able to be like, well, this is how I feel about Nick now. This is how I feel
yeah,
about, what the boys said behind my back, because otherwise you don't get a chance for everybody to really see the 360 side of you, right? So for me, doing things like
exactly.
this, it's not about the $100. It's about me being able to say, well, actually, yeah, I cried about Nick on the show, but did I really care about what he did to me? No. You know what I mean? Like, I think Nick is
Yeah,
a wonderful boy who took an opportunity. You know what I mean? So, but you don't really get to see. I do say on the show, I don't, like, I have no hard feelings against Nick, but yeah. So a lot of people ask me on social media, "Do you hate Nick?" And I'm like, no. Why would I hate Nick? Like, like I don't hate him at all. You know what I mean? Like, so for me, this is not
well,
about $100.
yeah. I mean, with that, so actually, that's like one of okay. Actually, that is one of my questions. So it's like, what were you thinking on the elimination day when almost everyone ganged up on Nick to eliminate him?
Oh God, I kind of knew it was going to happen. Because you got to understand, like we're in a house, and then it all starts to
Yeah,
become a bit like people are forming alliances, and Nick is so confident, and he is so loud and so brass, and he's just that big personality. And so he's like to me, don't worry about it. I've chatted to the boys. We know who we're voting out. And then like I like really in tune with my gut and stuff. And I said to him just before we went to go to vote, I was like, I don't have a good feeling about this. I was like, I don't think the boys are on your side. And then they lock us in a room and they say no one can talk. And then we had to go vote one by one. So we were locked in this
yeah,
room, and then Rico and I ended up having a bit of a thing. Rico and I, during filming, did not get along at all. I loved Rico and Nigel, but Rico kind of
yeah,
had this, he associated with Mick, so we didn't really get along. So we were locked in this room, and somebody had a phone. We weren't meant to have our phones, and I didn't really take it that seriously. I didn't think we were in such a environment where people were going to get like in trouble. And I was like, oh, you guys have a phone. And it just caused the biggest uproar because they got in trouble. And so then there was this whole tension going into that elimination. And then also eliminations don't take 5 minutes. So we're not standing there for 5 minutes, right? We're standing there for quite a while, and
Yeah.
times you're not allowed to talk. So tension's building up. So in my heart, I knew that it was, in my gut, I should say, I knew it was kind of going to happen. And was I sad that Nick was leaving? Yes. But in that situation, in that pressure cooker, I knew that if Nick left, then I had a chance of leaving as well. So it was kind of a little bit selfish. I didn't want Nick to go because if Nick went, then it's my partner going, then I'm up for elimination
Right.
as well if I don't find another date. So, but I will say this: out of all of the himbos in the house, as sweet as they all were, like they were all super sweet. Um, I was only attracted to Nick. So I thought, oh fuck, if Nick goes, what am I going to do? Because I didn't have any other sexual attraction. I know it's not all about sexual attraction, but when you've got such a short time to meet somebody, I think there needs to be that initial spark, right? So there were many layers to why I was upset. One was yes, Nick was leaving and he was hot. Two is because I was worried about my position, you know what I mean? And three, I wasn't attracted to anybody else, you know? So I was kind of like, shit, if he goes, then that's where my attraction goes, you know? So.
Right. And it's like, well, this was the thing. And you can say, because again, I'm only talking about what I saw from the outside,
Mm-hmm.
which is Nick saying, I want people to see me as more than just the nightlife guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, if that's all that you're showing the camera, that's all
Mm.
that people are going to see.
Mm. Mm.
So it's like, how can you expect people to see you any different way when you're not
Mm.
showing anything? And it's like, but if that's your personality, that's your personality. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
if you're not deep, listen, not everybody has to be deep.
Yeah. True.
We need the shallow models to do shit. Like
And he's
we
very
need
good at
them to,
that.
yes, we need them to be pretty and be on camera. We need bitches
Yeah.
like me to we need bitches like me to speak for the people. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
that's just
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think probably, yeah, but like with Nick, like I think there is a softer side to him, and I did say this on the show. And you got to remember, you do have conversations off camera. Look, I knew Nick wasn't that attracted to
absolutely.
me, and I also knew that um, rumors were that he had a boyfriend on the outside. You know, so I knew that there was part of it that, you know, like he wasn't being completely real with me, and but I want to give people the benefit of the doubt all the time. Also, he's hot, so I was having fun. But I think there
Yeah.
is a softer side to him, and I think if he had stayed on the show longer, and people could have seen like the conversations maybe that we had when we weren't on camera, where it was a little bit more. The performance was gone. Maybe people would have seen a softer side to him, and I said it on the show. I said, but I think Nick was starting to soften. But I think there is that performance part of Nick that whenever there was a scene, it was a scene. Whenever the cameras were down, there was a little bit more gentleness, right? That I got to
Yeah.
see. And it doesn't mean it was a romantic thing. It just means that there was another side of Nick that I don't think people got to see, because every chance on camera, it was more about a performance maybe, or just keeping up that personality. I'm not sure, but I definitely know that I saw off camera a softer side. And I think maybe, as I say, maybe it wasn't romantic, but maybe people may have seen like a different side of him if he was in the house a little bit longer. You know, but you know, we're all complex people, and there's many layers to people. And I think put anybody in camera on scene, and especially you Americans, there's always a heightened sense of who somebody really is, if that makes sense.
See, I mean, I get that. It's like, as someone, I would never want to audition. I have like a concept for a like singer songwriter competition show that I would
Mm,
gladly present to a network. That's something I'd
mm,
rather do because I've looked at my career and it's like I've tried auditioning for American Idol. I've tried doing all this. It's like I don't fit in that lane. So I'm like, let me create something that's not here. And it's like on the show, it's like, at least for me. And this is actually when I said I wanted to move to LA at one point. Here's why I know I could never live in LA. Because that thing of when people look at somebody who's like not that talented at all, they'd be like, "Oh my God, babe, you did so amazing. Like, I love that for you."
Yeah.
I would be like, "Who the fuck told you could do that?" like that is horrible. That is there's a certain artist who I've interviewed on this show who I thought was talented. And I've written questions for them to come back. And I now realize that they aren't talented. And that's why they're never going to come back on here. Because I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I think you're an amazing artist when I think you suck. Like,
yeah, right. Yeah.
That's just...
Well, good on you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we talking about Nick?
No, it's a musician called Onyx. No, I'm trying to get Nick on here. Like,
oh yeah, he's fine. He'd be fun to interview.
If I could get a hold of him, I absolutely would have. And I've been trying to get Nick on here since before the show. Like,
all right.
But
yeah, he's pretty busy. If you follow his social stories, he's definitely a busy social boy.
Well, first of all, it would be fun. Now, I will say this: there was a time where, like, at the beginning of this year, I'm like, oh, I'm only gonna do 2 interviews a week. That was my thing. I'm like, I'm gonna do 2 interviews a week. That's gonna be fine. This is my 4th, 3rd, and I've got 4 next, and I've got literally 2 tomorrow. I've got 1 on Monday, and then I've got 1 on Friday and 1 on Saturday. So it's like,
that's great. You're smashing it.
Yes. I clearly hate myself. So like, no, I love it. But it's like, I mean, I get it. Like, but for me, it's like, that's what I want to do. Because it's like, I've spoken to people like behind the scenes where it's like, even musicians who just like post a lot of pics of themselves in underwear and do all these like different kinds of videos. And it's like, but they're like, I want to be seen as an artist. I'm like, well, then come on my podcast, because that's what I want to show. I want to show. Now, granted, I want people to be authentic. There's people who have been on here who, in my eyes, showed themselves as real and then ended up being fake. It's a Milo.
I see.
No.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think if you put anybody that's going to go on a TV show, I think has to have some type of like for me, let's go back to people asking why I went on the show. Yeah, 1, opportunity. Yes. Why not? 2, I think I want to be in love. I'm not scared of a camera, right? I grew up in the entertainment industry. I've been dancing my whole life. I'm not afraid of, so they have to cast people that have something, as you said before about artists, there has to be something not 100% going on up there to be like, I'm going to go on a TV show where I'm going to live in a house and I'm going to date people and I'm going to let people film it and I'm going to date somebody 20 years younger than me and my family's going to watch this. Like, there's got to be some point of us, all of us, daddies and himbos that went on the show that have a little bit of something that we, not right, but somebody who's not comfortable or doesn't have some part of their personality, which is a little bit like, rah, rah, is not going to end up on one of those shows. But then you look at someone like Jimmy, who is so quiet, right? Like, he's such a quiet, gentle soul.
Yeah.
but he ended up on the show. You know what I mean? Like he really is, like, I would say he was hilarious, but he was definitely one of the quietest, more reserved people that if you met at a bar, you would never think that he would go on a reality TV show, right? But there had to be some part
Yeah.
of him that, oh, I'm going to put in an audition tape, right? So I don't know. Like when it comes to being authentic, I think on the show I was really authentic. Like I never faltered, I never
Yeah.
acted or lied or like, I think it was obvious Hazel and I didn't have any sexual attraction, but we had an agreement, like let's just have a good time and see what happens. So I never lied to him. I never act well, you know, we we did what we had to do. We went on our dates and we had fun and everything, but it was still authentic. You know what I mean? Like we still were like, when I asked him what's going on here, he's like, oh, I don't think much is going on at all. And like, so we were never really hiding anything from each other, even though we did have a conversation where it was like, oh, well, look, we don't off camera. We're not attracted to each other, but let's just do it and see how it goes. You know what I mean? So I think for me personally, didn't never change who I was fundamentally on the show. Like I was always
Right.
honest with everybody, and I am still authentic. So I think for me, if I hadn't been authentic, I would have struggled after the show. I do think there was a
Absolutely.
lot of acting on the show. I think there was a lot of boys that yeah, it was definitely cameras on, lights on, shows on type thing. So, and I think that's easy to
Right.
see through when you watch the season,
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay. To Hazel, we're gonna talk about that in a minute. So it's like, for me, it's like with that, it's like, granted, you knew that you weren't in love with Hazel. Obviously, it was very clear
Mm.
to anyone watching on the show. But it's like, it's, but it's like Hazel was so young. Like that's the thing. It's like I think back to me at like his age, like he's like what, 22?
Yeah, 20, yeah,
Like
22 when we filmed.
yeah, so it's like at I don't believe, and some people may think I'm wrong about this. I don't think you honestly know about what it's like to be in like a healthy, committed relationship till you're in your late 20s anyway. Like that's just my
Right.
view on it. It's like
Yeah.
the closer you get
Hmm.
to the closer you get to 30, you start to like all of a sudden realize things. And like
Mm.
so
Mm.
it's like at 22 he was acting like somebody who's 22 and like this is, to be clear,
Yeah.
this is stuff I would say to Hazel. I'm trying to get um Hazel and I are in talks. I don't know when it's going to happen, but Hazel and I are talking with each other. So it's like
Yeah.
this is all stuff I would bring up to him when, cuz
Mm.
this is my thing. I am not that person who's going to be like say one thing to one person and then the next thing to another person like completely ignores something. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because that to me is fake.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a lot. I would say, like, first of all, being on a dating show, I would never, well, I'm going to say now, I would never do it and then watch I'll do it at one point. But it's like, I for now can't see myself doing
Never say
it.
never. Yeah. Yeah.
No, what was it?
But look, the thing.
Somebody told me that about LA. They're like, never say you're going to move there. I'm like, unless I get a personality change, I don't think I can survive in LA.
No, yeah, it's a lot there. But here's the thing with Hazel. Hazel came in the house. He picked Dr. Ed. Then this is what I think fundamentally what was wrong with the show. And Aaron was right. No one was dating around. Whenever somebody got their first partner, they just clung on. Like that was it. They just wanted to. For me, it was stay with that partner and get to the end. What happened with, I think, for Hazel came in, picked Dr. Ed. He was already coupled up. Then Hazel ended up with Sal, the oldest guy in the house. Then me, like the next oldest guy in the house. I feel sorry for Hazel because I just think, Hazel went in and saw Dr. Ed, was just like, that's if I think Hazel would have had a very different experience if he had stayed with, Dr. Ed, his first choice. Where so we say it on the show, Hazel and I kind of ended up by default because no one else was gonna like mix and match. So it was kind of Hazel and I left, right? So it wasn't like we chose each other. Because for me,
Right.
Hazel is such a beautiful person, personality wise, and to look at, goodness. But I
Yeah.
like brown skin, short hair, like so. Hazel's white, long hair, and so it was completely like from that sexual point of view, completely different thing. And then there was the age gap. I'm 45, he's 22. Like I'm in yoga, he does what he does. Like we didn't have, there was just absolutely no common ground anywhere except the fact that I think we're two really nice, fun guys that could have funny conversations and laugh. And I think that's why it was easy for me to hang out with Hazel because
Yeah.
he's actually super intelligent and very talented. Like, I'm not sure if you saw any of the piano playing or anything, but he's super smart boy, probably smarter than I am, honestly. So it wasn't hard to hang out with Hazel. But I do think Hazel comes across on the show a little bit ditzy, but that's a part of who he is. But the other part of
Yes.
Hazel is a very smart and intelligent and very sweet person. And he chose Dr. Ed, who is like the complete opposite to what I am. And then it ended up with me. You know what I mean? So, like, I think I think it's a really weird experience. And my thing take out from the show is it became about survival, and people met their person and then they were like, I'm not letting go of that person because I want to get to the end. That's not all of couples, but I think for a majority of couples it was like,
Yeah.
find somebody and cling on, hold on. And that's the same. I would have done the same with Nick, honestly, because I wasn't attracted to anybody else in the house. You know what I mean? If Nick had stayed longer, I would have clung on to Nick for as long as I can. So I'm not dissing anybody, but I think that's what happened. And that's how Hazel and I ended up together by default. But, you know, but it was fine. We had fun. We had a good time
No.
until the last 2 days.
And that was the thing. It's like, again, I know you didn't see the first season, but it's not like that didn't happen again. That didn't happen in the first
I
season. That
saw the
happened in the
first
first
season.
season. Oh, you did? Okay. So
I
literally
watched
that
after,
happened.
like, once I
Okay.
auditioned, I was like, I have to watch this. Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, then you saw that literally happened with Prince Joshua. Like, except,
Mm.
like, obviously he went further than you did, but it's like that happened. It's like he got into the house and it's like he's with this guy. He didn't really have much, I don't know,
Connection.
like at least connection with yet. At least for me, they at least from my view, they had hotter daddies this season. Like that's just my
Season
opinion
one.
on that. As a than season one, yeah. At
Right.
least
Yeah.
in my view. Yeah. And it's like at first I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't I do find you extremely attractive now, but it's like at least for me, just like what I'm used to, it's like it was hard to realize how attractive you were when you were like one of the only white guys in like a sea of like four different black guys, and it's like, ooh,
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Wait, we all have taste, right? We all have taste.
Well, my taste has to come with the fact of I started dating when I lived in Orlando and I lived in the hood, so it's like I got used to black guys. So
Right.
like,
That's your thing.
the,
Yeah, and that's where your eye goes.
yeah,
Yeah, same as me with Hazel. Like Hazel's
yeah,
beautiful, but I don't like long hair and I don't like white skin. Same thing, like you just, you know. So I get it. Totally get it. Yeah, it was a hot season. Everyone was kind of hot in the house this year. And I think season two had a glow up from season one in all aspects. Like better lighting, better cameras. I'm not sure,
better.
but everyone looked a little bit.
It was something where like I would say there's a little bit, at least for me, there was a little bit like of a build up to season two, where like season one was just like I don't know. For me, you had characters like Phoenix,
Mm.
like I will say this: Phoenix is very sort of like ditzy and funny. I love Phoenix. Like Hopefully, I'm hoping on having I've interviewed Phoenix twice. I'm hoping to have Phoenix back on again at some point. His schedule and mine, like as I said, I'm crazy busy, and like
Yeah.
I know it's not gonna. I know with me moving, it's not gonna get any like less busy. If anything, it's gonna become more chaotic. I just, I know that, but it's like, so I stuck in because it's like, I don't know. I was bored the first like few episodes, but then like once I started getting into the show, I was like really paying attention.
Yeah, right. I think people get invested. I really like I had a group here watching in Shanghai, and like a lot of people got invested this season, really into the relationships and everything. When which I think is really, it's so super sweet, right? But I was there filming it, so I kind of really knew what was going on. But like each week, I had lots of people that were like, like when it's first the show first started, everyone was like, "Oh my god, those twins are so annoying." By the end, all my friends, plus my mom texts me, she's like, "Tell the twins I want to meet them. I want to hang out with them." Like,
Yeah,
like I think I love how through the season you really got to, people did grow, people did, you did get to see the real side. And I'll tell you this, the twins are the twins. There was no acting, and I love that. And I think that's
yeah,
why by the end people loved them. I think when the show first started, people were like, "Oh, this is maybe an act. This is annoying." But I think by the end, you realize actually that's who they are. And all of
yeah,
my friends and my mom all want to meet them. You know what I mean? I think that was great. Like, I think people that were acting, you kind of knew by the end, oh, this is an act. But the people that were authentic, like the twins, myself,
yeah.
people, you start to grow to love them. You know what I mean? And I think that was nice about this season is that, you
No,
know,
eh, and that was the thing. Like with Anthony, and like why I was probably rooting for Anthony to succeed the most is because Anthony was very genuine, and it's like, especially like well, I will say this, after interviewing him, it was like when I saw that episode where like Marcus and Hazel basically tried to like talk to Derek about like
mm,
how Hazel allegedly like how Anthony like allegedly flirted with Hazel, and I'm like, I looked at that and I'm like, bitch, like it's like that is such drama, and it's like
yeah.
they knew what they knew what they were doing. They knew exactly what they were doing.
But see, this is the thing: is that I love
Yeah,
Anthony. Anthony was one of my great friends in the house, but also
yeah,
Hazel's not dramatic. Hazel's not the type of person
yeah,
to stir drama or make shit up. So that was a real tough one for me, obviously, because when it was
yeah.
happening, obviously it's happening in the house, and I'm with
Right.
Hazel, and Anthony is my friend, and I I say in the show, I don't think Anthony did anything wrong. Like, I don't think he did it. If he was flirting with Hazel, that's what the show's about, right? Go flirt. That's fine. I didn't think there was anything wrong. But I also don't think
Yeah.
Hazel would have made it up. So that was a tough one for me because I was like, once again, like I was never the drama, but I was always in the middle, like with Nick, because there was so much drama with Nick. I was always there, and then it was Hazel and Anthony, and then I'm in the middle, and I kind of like I liked Hazel, and I don't think Hazel would have made that up. I like Anthony. Anthony said he didn't do it. What the fuck? You know what I mean? Like, but I also think if Anthony did it, well, who cares? Because that's what we're on. We're on a dating show. It's not a big deal. But so yeah, I was very, very torn with that whole thing. Like honestly, like I don't think Hazel would have made it up. Do I think Anthony could have done it? Yes. Do I think it mattered if he did it? No. You know what I mean? So I don't think anybody was wrong in what they did, because in the end, if Hazel was trying to look out for a friend, right? So
Yeah.
I don't know. Like for me, coming from where I was, which was there, it's a very different story, I think, from watching it on television. So yeah, I really
No.
don't think Hazel would make that up.
No, and that's the other thing is what people don't know. I mean, I would say this, what people, the general public, like I understand it because like as I said, I interviewed people last season. I know
Mm,
kind of what
mm,
happens with behind the scenes.
mm, mm.
It's like, yes, that fight was probably obviously a lot longer than what was actually shown on camera.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like everything is like
yeah.
they condense things down. So it's like
I have to.
all this stuff of like, but granted, I would say this, yeah, you had probably like the two biggest drama circles between like, or the two biggest like drama people on the show between Nick and then Hazel, because like
Yeah, there was
that
always
was
something
that
going.
was actually okay. So that goes to my next. That goes to one of my questions. So it's like, what were
Mhm.
you thinking in that moment during the Hazel confrontation, like the one like right
Uh,
before he got eliminated?
just is this really happening to me again? Like, and like, because the thing is that I had just shot a really beautiful scene with Anthony, just the two of us, literally 15 minutes before that. And I'd had
Yeah,
this really lovely scene with Anthony where it was just him and I chatting in the garden. And so I had no inkling that this was about to come from Anthony. And then we were filming this scene, and then Anthony just came, and I was just like, I remember I turned around, I think it's even on camera, and I just look at Anthony like, what the fuck? Like, what is happening right now? And like, it was exactly the same thing that happened with Nick. Them all saying to Nick, and they're all saying to me, Nick doesn't like you. Okay, that's fine. I understand it's a game. Like, and you guys are, well, the first time it was looking out for me. With Nick, it was they were looking out for me. Totally understand that. Second time with Hazel, I felt like it was an attack. And on the finale, I'm not sure if you watched the finale, I
yes,
actually
of
say
course
to
I did.
them, you guys made me, Hazel and I, feel so unwelcome because by that point, it had become such a competition that they literally wanted us out of the house, which they say on camera. So at that
Right.
point, I was kind of had just gone. I had gone through the ringer, I think, and I was exhausted. All I could think of was, oh my God, is this happening again? And I just had no fight left back in me. And I didn't
Yeah.
stand up for Hazel because I was like, okay, this is not my fight. And I'm exhausted. And I am like, these people don't want us here. It's very obvious. Um, yeah, so I was defeated by that scene.
Right.
Defeated and a little bit like perplexed that I just had such a beautiful moment with Anthony. And then, and now it had turned into they don't like you again, Kane. He does tell Kane that you don't like him. Like it just I just felt so unwanted the entire season, I think. Like just so like Nick doesn't want you. And now you're with Hazel. Hazel doesn't want you. And just being told that by your friends in such a confined environment, I think it's really hard for people to understand. They're like, why are you so emotional about it? But put yourself in that sense where you're filming these
Yeah.
scenes, you're in this house, it's long days, like you do form very fast relationships, right? So
Right.
yeah, to be honest, that one word I would say I was by that scene, I was defeated.
Well, okay.
100%.
One thing that I'm curious about
Mm,
before you got to that point, like
mm,
when they were starting, like I'd actually say like kind of like towards the start of that episode, you were getting down towards the end. Was there
mm.
any part of you, because you knew that you weren't like in love with Hazel? Was there any part of you
Sure.
uh, that thought about like bowing out?
No, because I only thought that there was one real couple in the house.
Do
So I
tell. No,
thought
I'm kidding.
I thought if I should bow out, why am I being made to bow? Just because we weren't showing the same level of affection or the same, I didn't believe that. I believed that there was one real connection in the house at that point, and my vote. If you watch the show, I voted for who I thought was the one real connection. No, just to the other guys, I love them all, but I didn't believe when they were like, "You guys aren't having a real relationship," and I was like, "Well, I don't think most of us in the house are, to be honest." So no, I didn't think of bowing out. What I did think about was it was just so. I'm like, I'm 45. I feel like I'm in a schoolyard being told, you can't sit with us. You're not our friend. It just felt very. I felt very. If oh, I don't want to use that word because that's really my word. It felt very bullyish. It felt very
Right.
bullyish the way that, not just on camera, off camera as well. Like it just felt very like the energy had changed for me. it went from being this fun, joyous, and look, if people didn't like me, I wouldn't have made it as far as I did to the top 4, right? So I was having a good time with everybody. I was really
Right.
enjoying it. But that last 48 hours when things started to change and it was coming down to the top 3, the energy shifted and it felt didn't feel wanted. But I also wasn't going to give up because, as I said, I only thought there was one couple that had a real connection by that point. So I didn't want to
Yeah.
give up. But half of me was like, it's too hard. So I did kind of want to go through like when we go into that last um what's it called when we do the yes no compatibility test.
Yes.
I kind of did want to win because I wanted to piss everybody off, but then the other part of me was like, oh, I'm so tired. Like, could I deal with that? They just would have hated us so much more than they already did. Yeah, so I forget where I went. I just rambled, but yeah, I
Yeah.
did not feel like bowing out. Really, half 50-50. Let's say that. I wanted to
Well,
stay to piss people off, but I wanted to go because I felt exhausted.
I can understand why you wouldn't have wanted to, if you that the part of you that wanted to bow out,
Mm.
because of what had happened earlier that season when somebody did.
Right. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Which
Ludus. Yes.
which crap, I forget his name, but like I remember that
Ludus.
when he said Ludus, yes, Ludus, thank you. When Ludus said is like, I wouldn't have been able to do what Phoenix did. And I'm like, you right. You wouldn't have been able to do what Phoenix did. I said that
Yeah.
when I interviewed Phoenix. I don't think anybody could have done that
Yeah.
as good as
Yeah.
Phoenix did because that's Phoenix's personality. Like,
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
And I'm
but
not a combative person. I'm not like a person that likes to fight. And so like I just knew that with like some of the personalities left in the house, like it would have been not a physical fight, but that it just would have been a lot of mouthing off um and I think there's one person that mouths off in the house quite a lot, Queese. And he really made his point of us not wanting to be there. And I don't know. I don't really deal with that energy. Like I'm like, to me, it's juvenile. And like I'm not gonna argue with you like that because to me, I'm fucking 45. I'm not gonna have this like
yeah,
argument kind of thing. And yeah, so definitely I would have liked to have won the compatibility just for that, little bit of like
yeah,
fuck you. But
yeah.
yeah, no, I'm not a combative person, and I think if I had stayed in the house, then it would have just been a very combative atmosphere, and yeah, I wouldn't have liked that. I mean, I think the producers probably would have loved it for the TV, but then also it's not really my character in the show. Like I'm so like chill
No.
and the one that was. I don't think I fought with anybody in the house except for Rico once. Thank God they didn't show it. But as I say, Rico and I just didn't see eye to eye in the filming, and it was more about him just not trusting me. So it wasn't like a big like rah fight. But yeah, I think I didn't fight with anybody in the house really, to be honest with you. It's not my style. So yeah, it was an
I
interesting end.
okay, first of all, I get it. Like I'm not very much that I'm not the person who fights unless you come for like one of my friends in any way. It's like if you're coming for
Mm,
somebody I consider my friend,
mm,
I am the clapback bitch because
yeah,
it's like
yeah,
it's like I will defend anybody I will say to a point. If I see you like either if I see you start to be fake, I'm not going to defend you at that point, or if
sure.
I see you going like completely off the rails and saying like something extremely racist or whatever like that. Not that I know people like that or am friends with
Yeah,
people like that, but it's like if you did, I'm thinking, baby, you on your own. Like
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
wanna you wanna go full Kanye West, go ahead. Like I ain't your friend anymore. I ain't gonna be here to help you. Like
yeah.
but
Yeah, look, and
it's like
I think I did struggle with that in that last scene where I didn't stand up for Hazel. And I did I did do a scene with Hazel where I apologized and I said I should have been more of a man and stood up for you. But I also
Yeah.
said in my confessional that, you know, I used the word before, I was so defeated and I was like, this is not my fight. This is not between me. Yes, as Hazel's partner, I should have been like stepped down. But on the flip side of that, I was also Anthony's friend. And, you know, so I think that was a real hard scene for me to watch back because I felt like I just put my head down, right? And I was just like, I'm done. And I felt like I could have backed Hazel a little bit more, you know what I mean? So that was a hard scene for me to watch. Man, I did try and rectify it by shooting a scene with Hazel and just explaining to him, but it obviously didn't make it to air. But yeah, I do feel like I should have been more of a man, I suppose, and stood up for Hazel at that point. But and being more combative, I suppose, and stood up and being a little bit more argumentative. But as I said before, I was tired. I was bloody tired. So yeah.
No, and it's like, well, because first of all, you knew. Well, maybe you didn't know. I feel like you knew at the end of the day. It's like this fight was gonna happen. I'm pretty sure you knew at least I would see it the way that I saw the season portrayed out. You knew that you were
Mhm.
getting eliminated at the end of that episode. Like,
I thought if because we didn't know, I don't think we knew at that point what our voting, how we were going to get voted out. I thought if it was
yeah,
anything to do with like a vote, like we vote for you out, I thought we're gone. If it was any kind of
yeah,
game, then it's up to anybody, and we lost on a game,
yeah,
which I think says it all.
yeah,
Yeah. But I didn't know that that fight was going to happen, honestly, because as I said, I literally had just been with Anthony in the garden having a good old powwow, talking about all things nice, nothing about that he was going to bring anything up. And then, but it's funny because now in hindsight, I look back, I remember when we were going to shoot the scene, Anthony was terrified. And I remember thinking, I wonder what's wrong. I wonder what he's going to tell me. Wonder what he's going to say when we're out the front. And it ended up just being a really nice conversation. It was a beautiful scene, and him talking about his daughter. And I mean, in my past, I've had stepkids, so I was talking about that. My ex was married and blah blah blah, and had children, and so we really bonded on like being like, well, he's a real dad, but I was a stepdad. So it was what the scene was
yeah,
about. And I remember thinking afterwards, wonder what he looked so terrified. And then now, you know, now that I've seen the show and well filmed the show, I knew why he was terrified. I thought, you know, he knew that that scene was going to come up where he was going to confront Hazel and, you know, tell us to leave. So it's a funny experience.
yeah. And it's like, of course, knowing editors, because on reality shows they want drama, obviously they're not going to
Mm.
show the scene where you were being nice to Anthony, because, like, it's
Then it wouldn't.
almost why. That's why, in some ways, I wouldn't like reality TV. As I've always said, like,
Mm.
I've had that conflict. I love the idea of like a docu-series where it's like you just literally let the cameras film
Right. Yeah.
and do very little
True.
editing. Like, that's
Yeah.
what I would.
I love that
That's what.
too.
Yeah.
Reality shows are entertainment too, though, and they need to have a
Yeah.
storyline, right? So there's, but and as I said to you
Right.
before, I think the producers really respected us as best they could.
Right.
Didn't show some people's total craziness. Um, you know what I mean? So I think the producers on this show were really respectful and protective of us as gay men on a TV show. I'm not sure how to say it, as humans on a TV show. Like I don't think
Right.
gay needs to come into it, but I think they really did do a good job. And I emailed them and said, you know, thank you for looking out for us. And I'll tell you this, we are very well cared for by them. They have somebody that's there to talk to you if you ever need, you know, if it's ever too much. Like I don't think like I really think my experience, and this was my first reality, I've been on another reality TV show, but just for one episode. But this was my first experience of being like a cast member of one. And for me, it was a wonderfully fun experience. And I say it in my goodbye speech, like it was fucking amazing. I loved it. So yeah, for me, I think this whole season, I think the producers did a great
Yeah.
job of, you know, keeping the storyline exciting and real enough, but without, you know, like really making anyone look, you know, completely psychotic. Which no, there was
Yeah,
no one was really completely psychotic, but there was lots
yeah,
more drama that maybe could have made it on screen, which they chose not to
yeah.
show. Which I think they were doing that in a positive way.
Yes, when when Kane came back for the reunion. Let me tell Kane's fans, because I know this from last season. When Kane came back, essentially what they did was they drove him from down the street up to the house. Like, that's
Yeah,
they never
yeah, yeah,
left.
yeah.
Like,
I was in a hotel with the other boys. Actually, I was in a club up
yes,
until a few hours before filming. To be honest with you, I'd been partying. Yeah, so it was a very long day for me, that reunion. But
yeah.
yeah, it was fun. Yeah, it's good.
That's why it's like I love that when some people are like, "Oh my god, the people came back." I'm like, first of all, it was shocking to people who were watching the show. Now knowing stuff that happened behind the scenes, it's like obviously y'all were gonna come back. Like, duh.
Of course. Why not? It's the last time to all be together. We had to vote. We had to vote the winner, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So okay, where am I? Oh, here we go. So I guess what's your dating life been like since leaving the show?
Um, not that exciting. I am after this going on a date with a doctor, so I'm very excited about that. Um,
Oh,
yeah, so I've decided to up my age range and stop the whole younger boy thing. It's not really working for me, so I'm dating a little older now, a little not so dilfs, um, dilfs esque.
yeah,
Yeah, so I'm still single. I'm definitely still single. I am definitely dating. Dating in a city like Shanghai is quite crazy. It's big, but it's small, if you know what I mean. So yeah, after this,
yes.
I have a date. I'm very excited about. I'm gonna go on a date and eat some yummy
Oh,
Italian food with a hot doctor. So that should be good. It is our first date, so let's see how it goes. But yeah, dating is
oh
it's our first
amazing.
date. I know. So I've been trying. I'm definitely trying. Like I'm ready. I mean, really, in
Yeah.
hindsight, I should have left the bloody house with Sal when Sal told me he was attracted to me on camera, which I don't know if they showed. Like I should have left with Sal. So I could be picking apples with Sal in bloody New York right now, but I fucked that up, didn't I?
See, for me, it's like I would say this. I am currently dating somebody. He's like, but he's being so like wishy washy, and it's like for me, it's like whatever. It's like I'm here with you while you're here. It's like he thinks we're gonna move to Detroit and things are gonna work out. I don't know. I don't think things are gonna work out because I mean, this is the thing. I'm already busy enough, as I said. I barely have time to see him now. Like
Yeah.
I literally just texted him. He wanted me to come by after we were done with this, and and he lives like 40 minutes away from me. I'm like, baby, I'm tired.
Oh. Well, yeah.
Like,
It is late there. It's like nearly midnight.
yeah, and I'm like, for me, it's like I am an early person just from living at home. That's the one thing that I want to get out of Detroit. I want to have like normal hours because like
Yeah. Right.
because of my life and having to commute and all this stuff, it's like I am up like this morning. Like I've been up since like 4 a.m. this morning. So like
Oh God, you need to go to bed.
so yeah, I know I know I need to go to bed. It's like but it's like for me that's why it's like when I tell people it's like especially as I said, if I lived in a city, I would be like going out more. I'd have like more regular hours, but it's like living in a small suburb, it's like everything closes at 11 p.m. Every way except for bars that close at 2 a.m., which they suck. So like
Yeah, right.
I'm and there's no like gay clubs either. So I'm like fuck it. I might as well like go to sleep. Like no point in being up.
Yeah. Save your money. Save your money for Detroit, right?
Yeah. Yes. All right. And I know. I'm running late. I got 3 more questions. I'll run through them quickly. So,
All right. Yeah.
what's your relationship to drugs and alcohol?
Oh, I love red wine. That's red wine and gin. Yeah. Drugs? No. I mean, no,
Yeah.
definitely not. Um, red wine is definitely my therapist.
Yeah.
And I love a gin and tonic. So yeah, I drink. Yeah. I mean, I live a very balanced life. Like I work in the yoga world, but I
Yeah.
definitely drink. You can't wait to go and have a glass of wine now at the Italian restaurant, of course. Absolutely. Yeah, but yeah. So maybe sometimes drink a little bit too much, but you know what? I think life's worth for living, and you got to balance your life out. And yeah, I might teach people yoga, but it doesn't mean that I can't enjoy going out and having a few cocktails and stuff. So yeah, definitely drink.
See, I don't. Yeah, absolutely. See, I drink as well. I don't drink that much, and
Mm,
I don't drink when I don't drink when I perform. I'm like one of the only performers who does things completely sober. But that's
right.
because I had a night when I was in like my like early to mid 20s where like I was getting handed. And as I say, when you're in your early 20s, you don't know how to tell people, no, I'm good. Like, stop giving me drinks.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
got handed, I think if I totaled it, I was handed like 5 drinks and a shot.
Oh God.
And then I got in my car and I had to drive an hour home.
Oh no.
And then, like, about 45 minutes into the drive, I got pulled over by a cop.
Uh,
And luckily, my dad saved my ass. Otherwise, I would have gotten a DUI. So it was like,
oh
that
shit. Yeah.
stopped me from. That stopped me from drinking when I was performing, and it's like as much as I like alcohol, I don't mind it. It's nice to sometimes be the sober one in the room because you see
Right. Yeah.
people acting like fucking idiots. Like
Yeah.
I had a drag queen who like shit talked my drag before behind my back. Like I showed up at an event like out of drag and like she was drunk off her ass and like as she was working the room she was hitting on me. I'm thinking,
Oh
bitch,
no.
and
You
I
should
let her
talk me.
do. Yeah, part of me wanted to be like, bitch, you fucking know who I am, but I just let her do it because I'm like, this is so funny. Like,
Wow, yeah, maybe she had one too many drinks that
yeah.
night.
Let me put it this way: I have never seen this woman perform sober ever.
Right. That could be a
She's
problem.
like, yeah, that's like, and it's like she's in her 40s too, and I'm like, aren't you supposed to like? I'm like, isn't your 40s when you're supposed to like have your shit together, like theoretically? I thought.
God, theoretically, that's for sure.
Yes. Anyway, so what are your thoughts on how the LGBT community is being treated today?
See, this is it's a tender question because I live somewhere where people say the rights aren't so good, but I can only speak from my personal experience right where I am. I had this
Right.
conversation last night. So I grew up in Australia, right? I feel safer here where I am right now than I would feel as a gay man in my own country on the street. I feel safe walking down the street here. I feel safe being an LGBTQ, going to any straight bar here and feeling like not going to be any trouble. In Australia, there are certain places I would not even go near, even though I don't look, well, I do act quite camp most of the time, but I would,
Yeah.
I would look over my shoulder walking home in Australia. So I think, it's all personal experience, right? So I did have a couple of bad experiences in Australia with homophobia. Um, I think we are being treated. I mean, I know in your country, it's a completely, especially with drag and stuff, it's a whole nother
Right.
world. And it's so scary what's going on. But it's not something that I know so much about, so I don't want to really comment on that. But for me, in my own personal experience, I think growing up gay in Australia was pretty good, but I still
Yeah.
never felt 100% safe. And
Right.
still, when I'm 45 and I'm home, and I was there recently, like I was walking down the street, I was on a date, and I made it sure that I wouldn't. And this was in a not Sydney or Melbourne, in a smaller city.
Right.
I wouldn't touch him. I wouldn't walk down the street and hold his hand. You know what I mean? Like I just wouldn't do that. So I still think, as much as things are easier for the younger gays these days, I still think we are still being treated, a little bit disrespectfully. Let's put it that way. I think we should all feel safe, right? And to not feel safe in
Right.
your own country is just because of who you are. Your sexuality is not fair, right? But I know for you guys, there's so much going on, but I don't know enough about it to comment.
See, in America, this is what I will say, and some people may disagree with this, but it's like, in terms of America, I believe it's as good as it's gonna get now. And the
Right.
focus, at least from my view, needs to be less on America and more on what's happening internationally, not necessarily where you are, but it's like my view is yes, you have this one trans person who died here, this one person,
Mm.
but it's like, but you look at like the Middle East where you have people getting murdered by the hundreds, by the thousands
Yeah.
for being gay. And
Yeah.
it's like, that's where the focus needs to be. It's like, yes, we can focus on this here, but it's like,
Right.
we
I
need
see what you're
to
saying.
rescue these people. And it's like,
Yeah.
In terms of the United States, I'm like, I would say this, like, overall, like, I am a peace person. I'm very much a pacifist, where it's like,
Mm.
all this stuff of like if the United States has done what they've tried to do, which is be the world's police,
Mm.
why are we sitting here trying to help this Israel and Hamas fight each other? What they've been doing for hundreds of
Mm.
years, when you could be helping,
Mm.
because anyone who says, "Oh, you're just helping gay people in the Middle East," it's like, but that's not a gay rights issue. That's a human rights issue because you're saving
Right.
lives. You're not.
Yeah.
It's like that's where we should be funneled with.
Sure.
That
I mean, it's a whole topic, isn't it?
yeah.
And
Yes.
I just wish safety for everybody, really.
Yes. Totally. And to my final question, what's the
Yeah.
biggest misconception about you?
I think what I think people thought on the show was that I was probably weak. One, because I cried about Nick leaving the house. Two, because I didn't stand up for Hazel, and I didn't show. I was always just like, yeah, well, and I think that was what I took away from the shows, that people thought I was probably a weaker person, and like on another podcast they spoke about me and they were like, oh yeah, well Kane, he just didn't have any like oomph he could have had, and I was kind of like, well actually, there's different types of oomph, and I actually did. um yeah, I'm not a weak person, I'm a very strong person, just because I choose not to be loud and rah 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 rah. I
Yeah.
don't think it makes me weak. I think me crying was a big moment for me because, as I say in the show, like I'm not a crier. There was many layers to that, as I explained to you before. But I think that may have
Yes.
shown me to be a little bit weak. And then not standing up for Hazel at the end, I felt like I looked weak. So I think the biggest misconception about me from the show would be that I don't have any fight in me, and I don't mean fight as in a physical fight, but have
Right.
any, yeah. I do have a lot of, I mean, I moved around the world. A weak person's not going to move around the world on their own. You know what I mean? Like,
Absolutely.
I have a lot of strength. I just don't show my strength in being the loudest person in the room or being the one with the biggest opinion. You know what I mean? So I think, yeah, I think my biggest misconception that I think people took away was that I was a weak man, which I'm
Yeah.
not.
Which, first of all, I will say this: like, being the loudest person in the room with the opinion, as someone who has been that person, it's
Mm,
not always the best. It's not always the best thing because it's like, at the end of the day, it's like it's great to have opinions, but it's like when you have opinions about people, that allows you to be a target for a bunch of backlash,
mm,
which isn't always the best. But it's like
mm.
at some point, it's like this is my view on my opinion. As I've always said this,
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you what I feel. You don't have to agree
Mm,
with what I feel.
Sure, yeah. That's a
Yeah,
healthy debate, though, right?
yeah,
I think as you
yeah.
get older too, you learn that you don't have to be right. You know what I mean? Like as I'm like
Right.
in some of the scenes when people are having these things, I'm like, you know what? Like I don't need to be right in this situation, so I don't have to speak up. You know what I mean? I think that's one
Yeah.
thing that I've learned in my 45 years is that I used to think that I had to be right and then I had to have a strong opinion and then I had to get my opinion across. But now I'm like, you guys hash
Yeah.
it out. I know what I think. You know, like I don't need to be right. I don't need you to think that I'm right either. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of the clashes that come is people
Yes.
needing to feel one validated, needing to feel heard, but needing to feel that other people think that they're right. And I don't think I have that anymore. I don't need you to believe what I say or to believe what I say is right. Like this is what I believe. So yeah.
So for me, there's two. One of them I've been told is that I'm intimidating, which I mean, if you see me in person, granted, Kane is very short. I am not. Like, I am. Well, this is the thing. I know I'm a big bitch. I'm 6'3". Like, I am like
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
I'm the tallest bitch in the room, and it's like, and I wear sunglasses because so not these, the pair that I wear when I go out and like when I perform, they're a pair of my mom's, and like as I always say, she never lived to see me perform. So it's like it's my way of like spiritually taking her energy with me every time I go on stage.
Right.
So it's like
Oh.
it's that, and it's like as a drag queen, like being the sunglass queen for years, I never learned how to do eyes. Like there's no eyes under here. Like that's why it takes me that's why it takes most drag queens 2 hours. It takes me 30 minutes because it's like 30 to 45 minutes. It's like all I have to do is my face and not
Yeah.
worry about my eyes. Yes, that's one of them. And then the other one is that I've been told that I'm shady.
Right.
I'm not gonna
Well,
say that
that's
I'm not opinionated because of course I am.
yeah.
But also it's like with a little bit of shade, it's like, hello, have you ever met a drag queen? It's like I would at least look at compared to a lot of drag queens, I'm fucking nice. Like
Right. And that's
there's
kind of
some
like the
like
drag queen's language of love, right? Shade. That's what it
yeah,
is. You know, like it's not.
yeah,
It's you love to read, right? So
yeah, and it's like all again, this is back to me. All I'm telling you is what I feel or the first thought that came into my head. Now, does that backfire on me sometimes? Of course. But it's like it's like too late. I fucking said it. Like,
deal with it.
yeah. And that is that. With that being said, it was a
That is
pleasure getting to
that.
meet you. Yes, it was a pleasure getting to meet
Yeah. How
you.
fun. Thank you for
Yes.
having me on.
You're welcome. Of course.
Well, take care. Get
With
some
that,
sleep. You've been up since 4 a.m. I've got to get ready for my
yes.
hot date.
Yes.
Wish me luck.
Yes. Good luck, babe. And with that being
Thank you,
said, this
darling.
is Gay Out the City. I'm your host, Prince Lecture of Diamond, and I hope you've enjoyed.